Morning. Thanks for being here. Those that are here and those that are watching at home, thank you, or at work. I bet there's some at home. But thanks for being here. I'm hopeful that I can give you some information today that's going to be useful and that will be helpful as far as our topic of the day. Real quickly, I wanted to introduce myself for those that don't know me. My name is Chris Clausey, and I'm the new director of the Financial Services Investigative Unit for the state of Tennessee's Commerce and Insurance Department. A little bit of background about me. I started in law enforcement at the age of 21 for the City of Franklin Police Department. I worked there for 23 years. I worked my way up doing different things, a lot of investigative type stuff, and then I moved over to Human Resources for the City of Franklin as the investigator of hostile work environment, race discrimination, things like that. During my time with the City of Franklin, I got my law degree and wanted to do some things after I retired from the City of Franklin that would kind of keep me in the same profession, doing investigations and helping people. So met Frank, the assistant commissioner, and loved what he was doing and what's going on here at this department and decided to come here. So that's a little bit about me. I'm sure everybody wants to know a lot more, but that's enough for right now. Because I've been with the state for now about 5 months, they want to make sure that I give a disclaimer and just let everybody know that I am not an expert in any of these things. I'm not an attorney. I don't speak on behalf of the state. I don't speak on behalf of the SEC or FINRA or NASA or any of those organizations. And I'm going to give you the information that I have the best that I can. And if I do make an error, it's due to my hoping that I have the right information, researching what I think is the right information, and still making an error. I'll also maybe have questions from the people that are watching this that can come in through our emails. I think everybody knows how to do that, to Stephanie. And anybody here that has any questions, please let me know. If I don't know the answer, I'm not going to fake it. I'll just say I don't know, and I'll find out the answer. I'll give you my information to touch base with me at some point later, and we'll reconnect. So let me just tell you what my goal is today. I have two parts. The first is to talk about why we report. Obviously we're trying to prevent financial exploitation of the senior population. There's a reason why we report. I want to talk about that. I want to make sure that I'm able to educate those that are listening today about the financial exploitation in an effort to prevent future abuses. I want to explain the benefits of reporting and why the issue is important. I want to give you some common red flags to look for and how to make a difference. And then the second part I'm going to talk about is how to report. We're going to go into some things kind of in a briefer context, as far as I'm not going to try to overdo it. I'm going to try to just give you some brief ideas, and that'll make more sense as we move forward. So let's talk about why we report and what financial exploitation is. And generally, senior financial exploitation and fraud is the illegal or improper use of a senior's resources for another's profit or advantage. And I'll give you kind of the state's definition here a little bit later. But exploitation generally usually involves someone the senior knows, such as a family member or a caregiver, and fraud is usually perpetrated by a stranger, such as a telemarketer or an investment promoter. And one thing to make note of is that even when decisions are made that aren't necessarily good and financial losses happen, that's part of legitimate business. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's part of a fraud or a scam or an exploitation. So that's just a general note. So our investment advisors and broker-dealers are in a unique situation to be able to detect behavior with our seniors that can help protect them from being victimized. There's proactive measures that can help to promote the goodwill within the communities, and they can report in a consistent way about the client's activities and safeguarding their information. It's important for them to be able to do that. They can do that. You are in a unique position to do that. So some of the benefits of reporting and referring issues that come up is it's improved safety for our community, for the seniors and other clients. There's proactive measures that help promote the goodwill in your community. And the one that I think is probably the most important is protecting the finances of your clients. It helps to preserve their financial independence. It provides a more effective cooperation between you and adult protective services, or you and law enforcement, or you and state regulators. And what we're doing today is we're just opening that up to where we have a relationship, we get to know each other, and we have resources that can help us to do our jobs better. Benefits are also a demonstration for you to demonstrate the concern to your clients that their well-being and their financial independence is important to you. It's a real, it's a tough position that you will be in when and if this situation occurs, but it's the best way that you can show that you can really back up by doing what you say that you're going to do. It helps you to preserve your reputation, increase community recognition. It also helps to empower your employees by saying, hey, here's some things that we're going to do that we expect you to do that are going to be helpful to our seniors, to our clients, helps to build up a better office morale. So those are just some of the benefits. And I think one of the things that's really important is that when you see that something is happening to a senior where they're being financially exploited, it's important to let them know that this kind of thing happens to everybody. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Wizard of Lies. It's the story of Bernie Madoff, and it's a very interesting movie. But in that movie, and in the real life story of Bernie Madoff, you know, somewhere between 50 and 60 plus $billion, he lost of his investors' money, and he got everybody. He got movie stars, he got athletes, he got talk show hosts, he got politicians, he got family, friends, he got everybody. So when seniors or your clients are talking to you about things, they're going to want to, in a way, kind of hold back on what's going on. It's important for you to help them understand that it's not because they're gullible, it's not because they aren't smart, it's just because the people that are doing this do it very well, and they get everybody. So why is addressing this issue very important? Our seniors are a vulnerable population, and they're a large population, and that population continues to grow. I know that everybody can feel the stresses of finances, and when you're stressed financially, your overall health goes down, and as you age, and as I've aged, the more stress I'm under, the more my health goes down. So financial health affects your overall health. Financial loss impacts your medication, your housing, your food. It affects everything that people need to live and survive in our society. Almost a third of older adults live within 150% of the poverty level. Even older adults with savings in the low millions can't afford to lose substantial amounts, as they don't have the time to make it up. They've already made the money. They don't have time to make that back up. Older adults are more willing to take financial risks and are often more trusting, and that's what makes them probably the most vulnerable of all in these situations. 37% of seniors report that they are currently being pitched by people calling or mailing them asking for money. And that's one of the things that in this short period of time that I've been with the state in this role, that I've seen a lot of the scams and a lot of the things where our seniors are taken advantage of have been completely unsolicited. Just some phone call or an email that gets them on the hook, gets them on the line, and it just goes down from there. 1 out of every 5 people over the age of 65 already have been victimized by financial fraud. And often one spouse, and this is what goes on in my house, often one spouse handles the finances, potentially leaving a surviving spouse ill-equipped to manage those financial affairs, and it makes that surviving spouse very vulnerable. So let's get to some things that you can do. Again, like I said, you're in a unique position to have early and often the only knowledge of financial exploitation. Let's talk about some red flags. These are red flags that can indicate fraud, exploitation, or abuse. So we're going to talk about those 3 things. So if you see a person accompanying an elder shows excessive interest in the elder's finances or accounts, does not allow the elder to speak, or is reluctant to leave the elder's side during conversation, that should definitely be a red flag. If you're seeing that the elder shows an unusual degree of fear, anxiety, submissiveness, and deference towards persons accompanying him or her, that's definitely a red flag. If the elder lacks knowledge about his or her financial status and shows a reluctance to discuss financial matters, again, another red flag. And if the elder moves away from existing relationships towards new associations with other friends or strangers, that's a red flag. If you are unable to speak directly to the elder despite repeated attempts to contact him or her, that's a red flag. If there is noticeable neglect or decline in appearance, grooming, or hygiene, again, a red flag. A new caretaker, relative, or friend suddenly begins conducting financial transactions on behalf of an elder without proper documentation, a red flag. Abrupt changes to financial documents such as power of attorney, account beneficiaries, wills, trusts, property title, and deeds, again, those are all red flags. If you are unable to speak, oh, I already said that one. If you see, and this is something that I've gotten calls from our investment advisors in the past short period of time that I've been here, but they're starting to see things that are like suspicious signatures. They're like, well, that signature doesn't look like the signature that I've seen over the past 5 years. That's definitely a red flag. If you see a noticeable change in the elder's established banking and financial management habits or patterns, including frequent large withdrawals, sudden NSF activity, inconsistent transactions, or uncharacteristic attempts to wire large sums of money, uncharacteristic non-payment for services, which may indicate a loss of funds or access to funds, and closing of accounts with regard to penalties, those are all red flags. So, what can you do? You can offer safe alternatives and, for example, suggest alternatives to large cash withdrawals and discourage wire transfers. Make clients aware of ways to limit the risk of joint accounts and discuss lower risk alternatives. You can also have your firm ensure that they have written supervisory procedures, which should include reporting requirements. So you need to make sure, and you need to understand them well if they're in place, a clear internal protocol to ensure timely, efficient, and effective management of reports of suspicious behaviors. Remember, a reasonable belief of elder financial exploitation is adequate for reporting. Proof is not required. No dollar amount is too small to report. Now let's talk about how to report. There are rules and laws governing disclosure of financial information. Knowledge of these laws fosters confident and consistent reporting of elder financial abuse by financial professionals. So I think probably most people have already heard about, but there's been a new bill that was passed, and that it was passed last month, I believe. But it's as TCA 48-1-127. It's the Senior Exploitation Reporting and Records. I want to talk very briefly about it, but I want to talk about it in a way to kind of give you a general sense so that you'll go and look at it and research it and understand it, because it's almost like a Bible for this type of thing. It's the essential elements that you need to be able to educate yourself on senior exploitation and how to report it. So real basic, it says if a qualified, and there's a lot of things that we're going to go into the definitions, but it says if a qualified individual reasonably believes that financial exploitation of a designated adult has occurred, has been attempted, or may have been attempted, or is being attempted, the qualifying individual may notify the commissioner. So let's break some of that down. What is a qualified individual? And the definition that's given in that section, a qualified individual means any agent, investment advisor, rep, or person who serves in a supervisory, compliance, or legal capacity as a broker-dealer or investment advisor. What is a designated adult? That's an individual 65 years of age or older, and then it also gives a definition for an 18 or older that's mentally, we're not talking about that section yet, but that's in there as well. Financial exploitation, now this is a section that a little bit more detailed, but definitely need to know. The wrongful or unauthorized taking, withholding, appropriation, or use of money, assets, or property of a designated adult, which we talked about what a designated adult is, 65 years of age or older, or any act or omission by a person, including through the use of power of attorney, guardianship, or conservatorship of a designated adult, to obtain control through deception, intimidation, or undue influence over the designated adult's money, asset, or property to deprive the designated adult of ownership, use, benefit, or possession of his or her money or assets. Or, and this is the last one, they're converting the money, the assets, or property of the designated adult to deprive such designated adult of the ownership, use, benefit, or possession of his or her money, assets, or property. That again is something that, as I read it to you, it can get a little legalese. The language is a bit tricky, but as you look at this, as you have when you get a copy of this, when you go out and research it and find it and read it, you'll see that it makes a lot of sense, and it applies to a lot of different situations that you're going to come in contact with. The important thing to remember is that a qualifying individual may notify the commissioner. It's not a requirement. It's not something that says you have to, but it says you may. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Obviously, if there's an immediate danger, you see someone that's going on that's immediate, they need to call, you need to call, someone needs to call 911. Let's talk about what Adult Protective Services is, because we've already, since this bill has come out, we've already started to get quite a few calls in our office that we're ending up having to refer to other places simply because we won't, it's not in our jurisdiction, but we don't want to let those calls and those potential victimizations go unreported. So Adult Protective Services, if you have a reason to believe that there has been, and it's just a reason to believe that there's been, or is about to be abuse, neglect, or exploitation of a vulnerable adult or senior, it should always be reported to Adult Protective Services. And I'm going to give that number out. It's 1-800-APS-TENN or 1-888-277-8366. They also have a website where you can report adult abuse on the website, which is www.reportadultabuse.dhs.tn.gov/. And any of these things that I've given out today that you have any questions about, or you need the number again or the address, web address again, I'll give my information at the end, and you're more than welcome to contact me. So Adult Protective Services considers financial exploitation in this way, which is a little bit different than you may realize, so I want to make sure that you understand this. When a caregiver improperly uses funds intended for the care or use of the adult, and these are funds paid to the adult or the caregiver by a government agency, that's considered to them financial exploitation. So the funds have to come from a governmental agency in order for Adult Protective Services to handle it. So if you have someone that comes in that's not from a governmental agency, where do you refer it? And so those are some things that hopefully I will touch on. Another TCA that you should make yourself aware of is TCA 71-6-103. And I'll just leave that out there for now. If we have time, we'll come back to it. Reporting to Adult Protective Services, the following are examples of signs that indicate a senior might have some cognitive challenges and be susceptible to fraud. If these are things that you're seeing, these are signs that you should report to Adult Protective Services, or APS. Difficulty communicating with or understanding you, challenging behaviors such as agitation, delusions, or inappropriate communications and comments, wandering into your office or becoming lost in your building, frequent loss of financial records, checkbooks, credit cards, debit cards, ATM cards, or they have difficulty expressing needs or desires regarding their affairs. Any of those things can be reported to Adult Protective Services. If you have a reasonable belief, or as the state of Tennessee defines, a reasonable cause, that's enough to report financial exploitation. If you are in doubt, call APS. If what you're referring to them isn't something that they cover or that they handle, they will let you know. You can fill out an online form and not speak to anybody, but if you do that, the only challenges with that are if it doesn't fit into their criteria, you won't know that right away, and you might not get anything back to let you know, hey, this isn't something that we're going to handle. So you might have referred it to somebody or a place that's not going to be able to handle it, and you might not know it. Also, if you call in to their line, it's completely anonymous if you choose for it to be. APS will determine whether the senior needs assistance, and if not, APS may refer the senior to the appropriate local resources. Okay, one thing that's important too is reporting it once oftentimes isn't going to get the situation resolved. Even if the suspicious behavior is reported, victimization can continue. Why? There's complex underlying relationships. Family situations and those types of things are very convoluted. They can make things very difficult, and reporting it in investigations may or may not get to the bottom of it the first time. So the more times that you're seeing it, or every time you're seeing it, keep reporting it. Seniors may refuse to admit that they have been abused, and oftentimes you can take that away from seniors. My time in law enforcement, I can tell you many victims of crime are very reluctant to share what's happened with them. Oftentimes they feel like they've done something that's made them a victim, or they're embarrassed, or a lot of different reasons they might not share that. So continue to report. Agencies cannot take action due to lack of evidence, and that happens. All of the resources that I'm going to give you will have challenges with that, where they can't get to the bottom of things. And then there's the repeat victimization, where it's identified, it's dealt with, and then it happens again, and that's pretty common as well. So closing out this thought, just report every time there is suspected exploitation or abuse, regardless of whether the customer or your client has refused help in the past. Making referrals to law enforcement, those can be very effective. They can also be very challenging in that law enforcement needs specific information from you that you can give them, and some things that you need to be aware of when giving them information is they'll need to know the name, the age, estimated rise and address, a telephone number of the victim. Those things are important. They'll need a full description of the suspect, if known, a description of the incident, location of the incident, and that'll be a big one to know if this is the jurisdiction of that law enforcement agency. Description of the suspect's vehicle and license plate if it's known. And remember, if you believe the customer or your client is in an immediate danger, always call 911. You can call law enforcement and report to law enforcement things like identity theft, grandparent scam, which is basically where somebody pretends to be the grandchild, the long-lost grandchild of this particular, of your client, and tries to assume a role that they don't truly have or have earned. The sweetheart scam, where somebody's, I'm in love with your client, and I want to get support financially, or a lottery and sweepstakes scam, and we've just recently seen something like that as well, where supposedly you've won a sweepstakes or you've won a lottery, and in order to get your money, we need your credit card information in order to either deposit it into your account, or you need to pay a small amount of the taxes that are going to be owed. So those types of things definitely report to law enforcement. Now, as far as your securities department with the state of Tennessee, the Financial Services Investigative Unit, what we do, and this is something that hopefully will be useful to everybody listening, is we conduct investigations of complaints that we get involving securities. So if it's not related to securities, we will not investigate it. However, we will refer it to any agency or any group that we can think that this needs to be referred to. Sometimes it's, like I said, it's been bad financial advice and it isn't really a crime, or it isn't anything that is reportable, so that is fairly rare, but we refer as much as we can that doesn't fall in our laps. But we do the investigations, and if we can't resolve it, we refer it. And sometimes if we're looking at a case that's going to be a criminal matter, we refer those to law enforcement agencies, either local or federal and state. We also, at our organization, we educate seniors on how to identify red flags from their perspective of financial fraud and exploitation and how they can protect themselves. If you want to contact the Financial Services Investigative Unit with any questions or any potential complaints that you think are out there, you can contact us at 615-741-5900. And if you want to reach us online to file a complaint, you can go to www.tn.gov/commerce, and there's a file a complaint form picture there. We're going to end up here very soon, I hope, getting even a better fillable form on there that's a little bit easier to fill out as well, but those are some good resources for you. When the FSIU gets a complaint, we evaluate it and we speak with the victim or the senior to find out what's been going on. If it involves a security, we conduct the investigation. We pursue securities, administrative, civil actions, and we refer for any criminal actions. The one thing that I think is important for everybody to know, and I think most of you do, but if you refer a client to us, that they understand is that the Securities, the Financial Services Investigative Unit, our investigators cannot get them their money back. What we do is more administrative, well, it's completely administrative, or it's a referral. Now, sometimes in criminal actions, they can get restitution on that stuff and maybe get some of the money back, but that's not something that we do. And then we can, and we do, oftentimes refer additional support and resources. If this isn't a security, we refer the matter out to another governmental organization or community-based resource. I am flying through stuff and getting towards the end, but another resource that I wanted to give out is from NASA, and it's a serveourseniors.org website, which is a great website to provide to your seniors or to your employees, or even for yourself, to look at information there that will help you understand more of what you can do. And I think that's about it. Is there any questions? Anybody wants to email in a question? Mr. Abernathy, do you have any questions? The question was, have we considered raising the age from 65 to higher? And the answer that I would give you is, I was not part of the group that helped write this new legislation or the new bill. I don't know what all went into that. I can find that out and get you back an answer on that. It's a good question, but I don't know. Probably people that are watching couldn't hear that, and I think the same thing. I mean, as I get closer to 65, we've got people in the room that are 65. I know Stephanie's getting close. That we don't think of ourselves as being vulnerable and having that type of. A lot of the things that we looked at here as not being vulnerable, I guess, and so that is a good question. I'm sure it's based on research and probably past practice of victimization and things like that, but it's a good question. Any other questions that maybe I can answer? Any questions come in from the people at office? No. Okay. Well, I guess it's just so darn thorough. Well, thank you everybody for watching, for being here. If you have any questions, like I said, I'll give you my information now. My email address is the best way to get in touch with me. It's chris.clausi@tn.gov, and to spell that, it's common spelling of my first name, CHRIS.CLAUSI@tn.gov. Thank you very much.